what do we do after a relapse? So first, start with a calm, methodical review, what I call a relapse autopsy. Set aside emotion and collect facts. What happened in hours and days before the event? Who was present? What did I think and say to myself? How did my body feel? Which coping strategies were available but unused? It's about like time stamping moments, exact time, places, and people. Note like how you feel, like were you hungry, angry, lonely, tired, halt? Were you fatigued, bored? Were you anxious? Record the external triggers, where there's offers to use or to drink, to go out to a bar, routines, sounds, locations, the availability of alcohol or substances. Map the sequences from the earliest vulnerability to the moment of use. Like this is about, uncovering what happened so you cannot repeat it in the future. So ask yourself targeted questions. What thoughts came up? Did I skip an AA or NA meeting or a support meeting? Did I skip church or celebrate recovery or smart recovery? Did I skip something that I had used in the previously that helped me with my recovery? From that autopsy, you can extract lessons with precision, convert generalizations into actionable items. Like if you were tired, now you can build maybe a better sleep hygiene plan or program. Set a bedtime ritual. Limit stimulants, coffee, wind down, listen to some soothing music. And it's about that internal script. Like don't beat yourself up. Like use that as a way to turn it from a relapse into a prolapse. A prolapse is when, yes, you may have lapsed or slipped, but you've taken the experience you've learned. You learn from that experience, like how to use better coping skills, or you learn about a trigger that you took lightly. A relapse can show you the missing tools that you may need, and maybe you didn't miss anything. Maybe you should apply what you knew. So practice skills every day that can help you in your recovery. Use setbacks to engineer like situations where you can prepare for it. So for example, maybe it's a wedding, maybe it's an office gathering, maybe it's a holidays, maybe it's a holiday party, something. If it's something like that, maybe you could take an accountability partner with you. But use what you've learned in the relapse autopsy to be able to do better next time. And as we say, don't beat yourself up. It's a learning process, and relapse isn't the end. So track your progress like it's an experiment, like what happened leading up to the relapse. And I look at it as resiliency. Like you made it back. It's like, where there's breath, there's life, and where there's life, there's hope. Resilience grows when you understand what happened so you won't repeat it in the future. Also, seek input. Like ask people, like, did you notice anything about me before I relapse? Ask people to help you with your, what you found from your triggers perhaps. Maybe there's a certain part of the city or places you can't go to. A relapse may sting, but when you process it deliberately and intentionally, it becomes a way to shape you for the future for a more successful recovery. See, we got cravings, we got urges, and these things are going to come on. But if you're prepared for it, you have a better way, a better opportunity to combat it in the future. So once again, my name is Drew, and this is The Reset, and I hope you got something from this today. God bless.